Thanks, Galen, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. My name is Noor. I'm head of growth at BAF, Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. And I'd like to start off with some quick background about BAF. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that starts accredited blockchain courses at universities. We build projects, we connect members to opportunities in the space, and we do these weekly events where we co-organize discussions with blockchain clubs and industry experts. In this case, we have Daniel from Blockchain at UCI and Galen, who's a super acclaimed crypto investor, co-founder of Double Peak Group, and formerly worked at PwC Crypto, to kind of get some insights about the future of Web3 gaming and have this community conversation about a topic that is super relevant in the space right now. So yeah, super happy to co-organize this week's meetup with Daniel from UCI. And I will leave the floor to Daniel and Galen. Thank you guys for joining us.
Oh,
All
thank
good.
you, Nora. Awesome, nice. So yeah, a little bit of background about me personally is my name is Daniel. I'm the vice president of blockchain at UCI. This is a club where we kind of focus on blockchain education and development, both on the university and industry level. Our goal is to kind of bridge the gap in order to grow blockchain awareness and also technical understanding. I'm also personally a second year student studying computer science at UC Irvine. And what got me into the Web3 space initially was from trading crypto. But then I started to really notice kind of like the valuable use cases blockchain tech has. Things like transparent transactions, trustless data verification, all without relying on like shady third parties that are usually kind of like using your data. So yeah, that's my introduction. So how about you, Galen?
Cool. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me here today. Hopefully, if the internet's not that choppy, I'm currently based in Bahamas right now, and currently using 3G internet. But then again, very excited to be here today. Formerly part of the PVC crypto team, was part of the core team working on global crypto initiatives. Third person to join the core crypto team globally before I left the firm about 2 months ago. We have about 300 people across 25 different countries. So, during my time at PVC, I worked with regulators, crypto exchange, crypto funds, institutional investors, blockchain projects, and more. And some of the core philosophies at PwC is building trust in society, and especially what we've seen in the last, I think, 24 to 48 hours. It's been really amazing to see how resilient the whole industry is, despite with a lot of the domino effect from the Celsius, Terra Luna, and also the recent Three Arrow insolvency. So at Double Peak, obviously, we do a lot of very early stage strategic investments. Some of our core flagship portfolio companies include Immutable X, backed by Coinbase Ventures. They're very big layer two right now, really focused on gaming on the Ethereum blockchain. We invested into Aurora, which we helped also advise in terms of their token sale, as well as various other GameFi and gaming initiatives that we're quite bullish on. I think the core focus of this call today is to assimilate and understand why Web3 and gaming in particular will have a huge influential impact in terms of crypto to come as compared to DeFi. But then again, very excited to be here today. Keep the floor open, and Daniel and BAF, back to you.
Oh, that's awesome. It's amazing getting to know you, Galen. Yeah, that's really cool how you kind of worked at PwC and now you actually co-founded Double Peak, right? How was it like kind of having a career in like Web3 space, especially such a developed one, especially?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting, right? When I first started Double Peak, this was back in 2017. It was just more of like a trading fund, or just like a like a crypto fund that just trades and trade out. I didn't start well off with a lot of money. I started with like 3,000 US dollars and basically built up Double Peak to what it is today. I was the first person to start Double Peak, and then I got my founder in about mid 2018. That was the basic the peak bear market, and people didn't know what they were going to do. I was in my third year of university, and I wasn't sure about my career path. So 2019, I started looking for jobs, and was lucky enough to come across this partner at this conference, and basically got connected, and when I was talking about crypto, they said, oh, Hong Kong's, basically hiring a crypto person for the crypto team at PwC. So I think, the stars aligned and was lucky enough to join as the third person. What's really interesting about, having a, Big Four accounting background, especially building out their crypto initiatives, is that, we have this institutional mindset, the best practices, the way we do things are very different to startups and also other crypto companies, because everything we need to do and what we do is very proper. We need to make sure that we have the right documentation in order to execute this project. So we have multiple PBC publications in crypto, CBDCs, DeFi, NFTs, etc. So it's been a really good experience. At the same time, I still maintain my side hustle, which is Double Peak, and just really investing in a lot of very early stage infrastructure based projects. So it comes hand in hand, and I think PwC has given me great experience in terms of how we see the market and from an institutional high level perspective.
Oh, that's really awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I see that you have a lot of knowledge on, especially on high level market analysis and data, especially in like such an emerging market like cryptocurrency it is, where we only have data for like let's say like the past decade or so to compare to, right? Especially in these new kind of economic times that we haven't seen since like the 70s. It's definitely a wild ride to come ahead. Yeah, that's awesome. I was wondering, are you personally kind of a gamer yourself, or kind of grew up with kind of a more gaming background as well, in addition to your
Yeah.
kind of Big Four accounting? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so
really cool.
I love games. I love games, and in actual fact, I was a big gamer myself. One of the very first games that I truly fell in love with was basically Rise of Nations, and it's an RTS game that I played in early 2000. And at that time, they had Command and Conquer, and they've got StarCraft, and I played StarCraft too. I didn't play the first version, and then once I think iPhone came out and the App Store came out, I started playing those mobile games, and I was quite proficient in modern combat. I think I was ranked top 3 or top 5 in Hong Kong. At that time, I
Oh
was a
wow.
huge gamer. And I also played something called Clash of Clans. I still play it to today for the last like 8 to 10 years. So definitely from that side, I mean I'm a relatively mobile gamer. I wouldn't say I'm a hardcore PC Mac gamer, but definitely from that side, I think has heavily influenced in terms of the stuff that we invest into, and also in terms of games that we backed. Fundamentally, games in part is not as easy as okay, we're investing in a game. I think gaming in terms from a VC perspective involves a lot about culture and whether the team can actually execute or not. So yeah, I mean at Double Peak we're very adamant that games needs to have culture and have this cultural influence rather than okay, let's back this game and let's sell it at 100 times return. We try and back games
Yeah.
that we will play ourselves.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I actually took a couple of game design courses at my university for my major, and I actually learned a lot about how these kind of cultural impacts can affect how players kind of see and play these games. Like personally, I also played StarCraft 2 a lot in high school, and as well as other games like League of Legends, Clash of Clans. And I feel like there's so much kind of like different flavors of games that kind of, and so many factors that kind of play into how these players kind of interact with them. And I really like how from when you said from the VC perspective, right? It's not all about like, will I have like 100 times return, right? But it's
Hey guys, sorry, the app glitched, and this has happened a few times. Sorry about that, but should be up and running now.
all good. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, there's always like technical difficulties. Yeah. Oh, we'll give it a second for some people
All
to join
right,
back in. Yeah.
cool.
Awesome. Nice. Let's go. Let me kind of
Yeah.
remember where I was saying. Well, that's really cool actually. That you also played like StarCraft 2. I also played Rise of Nations. Like way back when I was like middle
That
school
was
there.
actually a fun game. I love Rise of Nations, but they've
Yeah,
never built a game afterwards.
I know. Yeah, it's always kind of. I kind of find really like the vintage effect, right? Everything. It's also pretty
Yeah.
simple too. Yeah, I don't know. I really like those like real-time strategy games too. Yeah, really fun. I like having my own army, and yeah, really fun. Yeah,
And
let's get.
the thing is,
What?
oh no, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, the thing is, like, if you look at traditional gaming itself, right, the reason why RTS hasn't really innovated or, really survived the whole space is because the way you monetize the game is only at the point of sale and maybe the expansion pack. And most of the time, once you buy the point of sale, you buy the expansion pack, and that's it. That's the end game revenue, and what's the
That's
incentive for
true.
the developer to really continue building it, right? So the thing is with blockchain gaming, and that's why we've seen a proliferation of mobile gaming where in-app purchases are basic norm. We've seen EA having these loot boxes; they're terrible,
Yeah.
and I actually think blockchain play to earn token types economics will actually revive the genre of real time RTS games simply because the way you monetize and hold these NFTs, it actually makes it much more sustainable than in-app purchase in mobile gaming itself. So I'm very bullish on the RTS genre in blockchain gaming.
Yeah, I love your take on that actually. By being able to kind of cultivate that economy, right, where the players are actively trading with each other, the game developers would be able to kind of let's say a 1% kind of like fee or take on that economic activity, and through that they'll be able to kind of how do I say this? Keep on pushing out like let's say new cosmetics stuff like that, as well as other items too. I've actually played the game. Actually, have you heard of Roblox?
Yep,
Oh yeah, awesome.
it's a great game.
Yeah, I was actually a Roblox developer. Well, not like official developer, but I built and designed maps on Roblox, and then got it back for like got compensated back in Robux, the in-game currency. And but through that, I was able to kind of actually cash out that Robux eventually. I think I was around like 14 years old. I think the payout was like $300, which was kind of like huge money for me, like that. But then the conversion rate was pretty
Wow,
awful.
nice.
Yeah, that was like my first like hook onto like, wow, this can actually work. And then yeah, so what was I saying? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so that was my first experience with kind of making money off of games. Where do you kind of see this kind of like play to earn feature, which is obviously Roblox had a huge cuts of it. I only got like let's say like 40% of what the original cost of the Robux was. But where do you kind of see this kind of play to earn feature being more developed in the future?
Yeah. So I think the current gaming landscape, right, is very, very, I think very, very bare and rudimentary. Simply because I think Axie Infinity, Crobata, the first wave of games, they're very, very simple. Just slash and tap, and you can basically run a bot that
Yeah,
would farm tokens, right? So I think I would say call this GameFi 1.0 very, very rudimentary, and basically most of these tokens like Axie Infinity, they're basically dead, right? I mean, like how
oh
are you
yeah,
even going to revive the token price? So but how I see the gaming develop is games that will branch into two major specific, or maybe three major specific type of genres in games, right? So firstly is desktop only games, so PC Mac only type games, and we've seen people playing Phantom Galaxies, which is just a desktop based game, and you need to have a very high spec PC, PC machine to run it, and it's relatively complex. At the same time, you've also started to see mobile games just are building on mobile, and the perfect example of this would be Guild of Guardians, where they're building a mobile first app on iOS and Android. So built on the Mobile X, you're able to create non-custodial accounts, and basically having this ability to just play games and spend gems, spend tokens within the iOS app. And the third type of, I think, games that we're also going to start to see is WebGL games, where a lot of the in-game actions and items like Planet Quest. So Planet Quest is a game that's co-founded by Lauren, the co-founder of Emerald, which is a very big game They're also building on Mutable, where it's going to be fully rendered on WebGL, basically in a mobile browser. Anyone in the world, regardless of their computer specs, they can just stream it or just run it in their browser on Chrome. So very, very exciting times.
Oh, that's really awesome. Yeah, I played a bunch of games. Actually was part of the Boardbox release, which is like an NFT Dropbox where they kind of gift you items from all these different kind of games. I believe it was called GFC. It was like I've seen a lot of blockchain-based games that kind of mimic
Yeah.
what the already existing games are, like things like Brawl Stars. I took a quick look at Guild of Guardians. I actually really like the concept, like the art style as well. It's like a dungeon crawler with like multiplayer. But how do you see these? How do you kind of see how these games would compete with their kind of like counterparts that aren't blockchain?
Yeah. So in terms of the, you mean in terms of the blockchain type application or like the integration of the blockchain?
Um, like let's say we have like a blockchain-based game, like such as Guild of Guardians, and then there's
Yeah.
already an existing or developing game that's not using blockchain technology, but just the conventional app store in-game purchases kind of
Yeah.
method.
So yeah. So I think there's going to be a couple key things that we need to understand. Firstly, is the app allowed to store? Because if it's a blockchain game, it has tokens. Most of the time, you're not able to really list on the Apple Store. So that's number one. And I think it would really determine whether
Oh,
it'll make or break the blockchain game. So and that's why if you look at Axie Infinity, they don't have a game on the App Store. It's like they have to sideload it on the Android, or they use Apple Test Flight, to load the game for users to play on iOS. So that's first and
oh, yeah,
foremost, I think that we need to understand. The second more important point is the gaming industry is so you say a low quality pixel game like Minecraft takes off while Cyberpunk
yeah,
2049 or what or that game,
yeah,
right? It basically, I wouldn't say it blew up. It wasn't as popular, right? So it really depends on the game mechanics and how much traction it has on the community. And the gaming space is so big, right? The genre and the whole industry is so massive, and this is why it's so it's much more captivating to invest into compared to, let's say, DeFi, which is there's only so much you can do in DeFi.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I believe, like, I definitely agree. There's so much like flexibility to what you can kind of build in the game industry. And I think having something like play to earn or even just blockchain based mechanics would be maybe even it's develop its own separate niche apart from like
Yeah.
the original niches that already exist. Yeah, that's really cool actually. Yeah, awesome. Let's see. Let me kind of look into how. So what kind of there are already like tons of blockchain game projects out there. I think it's really easy to kind of market because I've seen a lot, not necessarily rug pulls, but just projects that are just straight up, garbage, right? But they market as like so this revolutionary play to earn, blockchain based. It's gonna be the new biggest thing. But then when you actually go into the game, it's just some, web, Unity free assets they just plug
Yeah.
together, right? Exactly. What helps you kind of figure out which of these projects would be actually worthwhile for people that are trying to get into these projects?
Yeah, so I think what's really important is we need to take a step back and look at gaming in general. If you look at, let's say, the historical stats, Age of Empires, medieval type mythical games, in terms of the traction, is much more. I think, so one of the portfolio companies that we invested into is called Infinity Gods, and Infinity Gods, they ran this A/B testing type game where they released a sci-fi game, and then they released this game which had medieval type characters, and surprisingly, the mechanics are the same. The characters are very similar, and the game itself is basically identical. But the only biggest difference is the genre, and the mythical games actually performed much more better than, let's say, a sci-fi game, which is an RTS game. So what's really interesting is that market research is very important, and it's very important that you have to take any other games and just repackage and sell it as Unity assets or buy a failed game off the shelf and turn it into crypto, is you really need to take a step back and understand, okay, does the founder know what they're doing and have they delivered before? So I think founders' experience is number one. Number two is how capable is their team? Most of the projects that we invested at Double Peak, they're mostly in-house. A lot of the teams would say, oh, look, we've got 50, 60 people. But if you dig deeper and try and Google them, behind the scenes, you'll find that they're actually all Vietnamese guys based in Vietnam, and they're actually outsourced. And what's the very dangerous thing about outsourcing it? A lot, like very similar to Pixelmon, right? I mean, they raised 17 million US dollars, and they haven't done
Yeah.
anything with the money, and it's just a that something like this could basically happen in the market. I do think that the founder has good intentions, but raising that amount of money, having an internal team and trying to outsource it, I don't think reflects really well in terms of the project itself. And third, and more importantly, I think having the team aside, how they're building the game, I think is the go-to-market market strategy. You can have the best game, but if you don't have the right investors or you don't have the right funding, it's very, very difficult to launch the game. And in addition to that, is building on a specific platform is very important. And for Web3 and blockchain gaming in general, I would say iOS and mobile gaming will be definitely the future, and something that you should definitely identify and focus on.
Oh, that's really cool, actually. Yeah. Back to what you said about the App Store. It's really interesting how like so much of it can rely on what these kind of monopolies they have, right, on app stores. Like such a big market share is directly controlled by, let's say, the Apple App Store, right, or the Android App Store, Google Play Store, and not many users are willing to like go out of their way, right, to try and download a game like separately, let's say from like jailbreaking their phone or something like that. So yeah, I really
Yeah.
liked your take on how those like where do you think like since you're in the space already, like where do you think is there any progress on how that's being developed at the moment?
Yeah, so I would say in
Uh,
general so I think in general the game itself, right, it's still very early. Guild of Guardians, I would say, is the closest mobile game that I know that's about to launch on the App Store. Simply because they basically bought the license, the IP of a mobile game, and they're actually building a lot of framework and infrastructure around the game itself. I think I would say in the next year or so we'll see much more games launching on here. What I'm really more interested about, and this is something that we're actively investing into, is something called SoFi, social finance, and I'm really bullish on something called human loneliness, people that are
oh,
inherently lonely, and hence why we invested into something called SoCal. We're looking to investing into this app called Octi. They're rebranding to Ultraviolet. It's a metaverse app that's going to be on the App Store. And what's really interesting about social finance is connecting people together, and it's very, very similar to gaming, where people come together and play games. The market and potential for this is much more larger than, let's say, traditional finance. If you look at the number of people in America, let's say, that is able to have like $1,000 in their bank account, it's actually less than, I think, less than 40% can handle that. So
yeah.
only like 60% of Americans do not have $1,000 for unexpected expenses, which is quite astounding from a user's perspective. But if you look at the number of American people that have actually gaming experience or actually played the game once, the size and the population is much more larger. So if you look at the level of financial literacy people are involved in finance and also Web3, the number of user base is actually quite limited. So I would say when you look at projects and tokens to invest into, it's not about, okay, if the token looks nice or it sounds cool, but what is the addressable market size and whether the team's capable or not.
Oh, that's an awesome perspective. I've never really thought about how much of the market actually doesn't, have that financial literacy, right? That how much of them don't even really care much about or have the ability to kind of do these Web3 gaming projects, right? That's really awesome. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much on your input on that. Actually, I definitely learned a lot. Yeah, that's awesome. So, it's something to wrap things up for today. What kind of advice do you kind of have for people still in like university level, right? Someone's still young, I guess, kind of like myself, or like many of the other people in this space who are also pretty young. What do you
Yeah.
kind of recommend for them who are still trying to get into Web3 and even like let's say the Web3 gaming space?
Yeah. So yeah, look, this is a great question, right? And for me, I got involved in crypto because my university professor says, Galen, you should look at Ethereum. Grades are not important. It is important, especially to get the first job. But anything after that, and also in Web3, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's about the number of experiences that you have, and the best way to do that is just join DAOs or even join gangs and just actively contribute to the community. Be a moderator, be a community manager, and try and contribute to these NFT projects. Obviously, contribute to selected ones that you feel has a lot of potential. At the same time, joining the ambassador program, I think Guild of Guardians had one. I think a couple of months ago, and these ambassador programs are a great way to get exposure into this market. And I think on the final note is finding internships. I think despite the market downturn that we have seen today, I think the future of Web3 is very, very bright and has a lot of potential. And look, feel free to message me on Twitter, or message me on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll be dropping your relevant contact details, and I'm happy to either refer people or introduce potential projects that might need help.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure there are tons of people my age like who are definitely looking to look for anything basically, especially in this market where a lot of like companies are kind of doing like even completely stopping hiring, right? It's very competitive in this environment. And then I think, but companies like Web3 are always able to kind of continuously innovate, right? Especially with how competitive the space is. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much for talking about that. Yeah, that's really amazing. That'll definitely help people like in my situation, definitely. So yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
the end of our.
let's let's open it up to the crowd a little bit. Do you guys have any questions for Galen? I know I have a question. I'm actually looking into breaking into consulting. I'm second year student at University of Rochester studying computer science, and I'd like to ask you, Galen, about your experience at PwC Crypto, what you did there, and what do you think about the company culture?
yeah. So I love PwC. I would say it's my first job straight out of university, and I would say I'm very blessed, or very fortunate that I could have such amazing fantastic job straight out of university. Just really focus on crypto. I'd say joining a corporate is very different to joining a crypto company, simply because the way it's structured is very different. In the corporate, day to day are doing. We had to do a lot of presentations and also consulting decks. I had to do public speech conferences, and also at the same time create these basic quarterly reports, or even reports, just talk about the general market trends. We do on certain occasions have these clients that would say, look, how do we expand into this certain type of industry, KYC remediation, regulatory policy. So we were helping governments in terms of how they should tackle their fintech and crypto policies. So definitely from that side, right? What we're able to do is on a high level perspective, do jack of all trades, where we got to do a lot of different things. The team was very small. It was very nimble. It wasn't like a usual consulting track where we would have the batchmates of 25 people. And a lot of stuff that sometimes it was related to accounting or auditing. So it wasn't fully consulting per se.
Got it. Thank you, Galen. Any other questions from the audience?
I'd like to inquire. I'm a man of many hats, and I've said that earlier to BAF and everything. Basically, obviously, I'm working for CyberX. It's a game that's coming out on Hive blockchain, bridged over to Avalanche. But I'm also doing my own project where I work for a group we're called Skate Hive, and we're trying to bring skateboarding to the blockchain to both, make skateboarding, something I'm passionate about on crypto, which, I want to combine my loves, but also to bring the, learning financial stability to all these skaters all around the world who maybe can't afford to invest, but they can go and post a skateboarding clip on our social media platform and earn crypto and start getting involved. The one challenge we're running into is we want to start an NFT card game. And we're all skaters, and we don't know how to find good developers who aren't going to, just rip us off or steal our ideas and different things like that. So I was wondering what kind of advice you'd have for that.
Yeah. So that's actually a good point, right? Because right now, what I've basically seen is two really different things. One is you either bootstrap it yourself. Basically, you find a group of friends and everyone chips money in, and of which one or two person within the team would have some basic level of programming experiences. At the same time, what I've also seen is projects. What they've done is found a smart contract online and they just clone it and just make modifications, because that's probably relatively easy to do and something that you can hire on TopTal or some freelance agencies, for programming stuff too. And some other projects, they would do a fundraise themselves, and then they would actually run a studio. They would hire a studio, and the studio would actually build out the whole game themselves. And this is what we've seen over the last 6 months, where there's so many projects that were raising money that would actually just fundraise the money and use the money to just hire a studio and push out the game and call it a day. So I think, from that perspective, I think it really depends on context, how risk adverse you are. If you feel like, okay, this is going to work, why not chip some of your own money in and try and give it a go. Or alternatively, what you can also do is ImmutableX have this grant program of like $50,000 if you get into grant, and where they will provide you technical support if you build on ImmutableX. So ImmutableX, they have something called Gods Unchained, and it's a basic card game. And I feel that that could be a potential avenue that you could explore.
Excellent. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, we've got a huge community, and we actually just had Bob Berquist, if you're familiar with him, famous skater, join us. So yeah, we have all the potential. We just have to execute now. So I appreciate the advice.
All good noise.
I think your project is very interesting. I would recommend dropping a text on the BAF Discord to look for people to build with, or if you're looking for funding. We have multiple channels for builders, so show your project there, and would be happy to help. But yeah, this was great. Thank you, Daniel, for facilitating. Thank you, Galen, for sharing your insights, your advice. I will definitely reach out for potential job hunting, getting referrals. Thank you for being a resource to students. I'm sorry the event was cut in the middle, but all of it was recorded, so we'll make sure to put it in our YouTube channel for people to tune in if they weren't able to join. But yeah, this was great. Thank you guys so much. Any last words, Daniel?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to thank you, especially for hosting this Twitter space and providing this opportunity, as well as Galen too, for being an amazing speaker. I really loved your concepts and like ideas you brought forward, and I definitely personally learned a lot about the industry, about how much it's adapting, especially. So this was definitely an amazing experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
All good. Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice day.